Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. No heat, reduction in gas tax revenue, low range, not enough charging stations, red herring after red herring after red herring. That's all that the Conservatives have to offer on this. Somebody accused me of gaslighting a few moments ago in a speech. This is a gaslighting tutorial being put on by the Conservatives right now, trying to make everybody all fearful of an electric vehicle. You know, I want to go to a quote that was from earlier today. This was from the member from Huron, Bruce, who said, quote, "Take, for example, a Ford electric truck. It's great if you're just toting down the road with nothing to pull behind you, but as soon as you have to put a trailer on it with a bit of a load the battery doesn't hold, you need a combustion engine to get the job done." Well, guess what, Madam Speaker? As somebody who owns one of these toting down the road Ford trucks, I've had it for 2 years and 2 weeks. I put 89,000 kilometers on this vehicle, just toting it around. Have I towed anything? I'll get to that. Yes, I've towed a dual axle utility trailer with a Bobcat S150 on the back from one city to another. I've towed dump trailers with it, Madam Speaker. These vehicles are extremely capable of getting the job done that only a gas vehicle could do, as Conservatives would want you to believe. The reality, Madam Speaker, no, it's not an electric Bobcat, but one day it will be an electric Bobcat, despite the fact that Conservatives will do everything possible to try to ever prevent that from happening. Madam Speaker, think about this for a second. I gave a very easy example in responding to a member earlier. He said the ticket price of an EV vehicle is about $15,000 more than a combustion engine vehicle. Now, let's assume that you stay on the low end of things. And I did a quick Google search to see how much gas the average vehicle uses in the lifetime of the vehicle. And it came back that it was between 50 and 200,000 liters of gas, okay? So let's stay on the low end, okay? I won't even push the high end, like my vehicle is clearly way on the high end. But let's just stay on the low end, okay? If you have 100,000 liters that vehicle is going to use, and the average price, again, I think this is fair to say would be on the low end, is $1.20 a liter. That's $120,000 that you're spending on gas during the lifetime of that vehicle. Now, of course, there's going to be another red herring, which is, oh, well, what about all the electricity? It's going to cost so much electricity. Great news. The technology in an EV, in my F-150, I can plug it in, Madam Speaker, and it knows, don't bother charging until we've gone into the off-peak hours. So it charges overnight, and I pay actually a lot less. The difference, the significance, and this is from somebody who's been driving EVs since 2011, the actual impact on your utility bill is so negligible that there are too many other variables on a utility bill to actually be able to see the difference. And that's just the reality of it, Madam Speaker. I have owned 3 Toyota Tundras. I have put $150 gas every week and a half into those vehicles for 10 years, okay? I've owned an F-150 Lightning for 2 years and 2 weeks. I would never go back. Any of these members here, I have it in Ottawa. I'll pull it up. I will take you for a drive. We will go and I will rent a trailer, and then we can drive around the Gatineau region with it, and I can bring you back here. And I can show them, Madam Speaker, that in reality, what they're saying and these red herrings that they keep putting forward are just factually incorrect. Anybody, any member in this House that would like this demonstration, I will openly do this at your convenience, just to show them that what they are saying is absolutely inaccurate. Now, I used an example earlier, because what the program is really about, Madam Speaker, it is about incentivizing the marketplace and getting people to try and getting industry to start to look for different options. Now, yes, they are more expensive. An EV, and I'll take the member's word for it, right now is probably about $15,000 more than a gas equivalent. But it wasn't like that 10 years ago. 10 years ago, it was about $60,000 more for the gas equivalent. Why is the price coming down? because governments around the world have been incentivizing the private investors, the private companies, to find solutions and to mass produce product. You would think that Elon Musk, the darling child of the right, would be able to convince my colleagues on the other side of the House, but they just seemingly don't even want to believe Elon Musk, but I'm sure they believe just about everything else that he says as it relates to his politics. Madam Speaker, I used earlier the example of the lighting in here. The lighting in here is LED lighting. 25 years ago, 30 years ago, we would have never had LED lighting in this room. It would have been the incandescent light bulb. Extremely inefficient, produces a ton of heat, i.e. a ton of waste, and creates a lot of expense in the process of producing the light. What did the Ontario government do back in the early 2000s? What they said is they said, well, we want to start to phase out and move transition towards another technology that's a lot more efficient. So what did they do? They said, by such and such a date, I believe it was 10 years, the incandescent light bulb can no longer be sold in Ontario. What happened there, Madam Speaker? What happened is that industry started to look for options. The first option was the incandescent light bulb. You remember those spirally little light bulbs? The compact fluorescent. Everybody was using those light bulbs at first. And there was incentivization. If you went into a Home Depot or Canadian Tire, there was those little stickers that you'd pull off, and you'd get $2 or $3 off the purchase of each light bulb. That's the government incentivizing and helping consumers pay the increased costs, knowing that later on, those same options would end up costing less. You know, this is basic economics 101. You would think that the party that purports itself to be the champions of understanding how an economy works would understand basic economic principles like this, yet they don't. What happened later on? Turns out the compact fluorescent light bulb was just a bridge to get to something else, because next came the LED light bulb. Now, as a result of Ontario and many other jurisdictions making that call 20 years ago, the only thing you can buy when you go into a store is an LED light bulb. And as a matter of fact, if for some reason you need an incandescent light bulb, you end up paying more for it than the LED light bulb. So as a result of government intervention 25 years ago, we now have a more efficient light bulb that is cheaper to produce, cheaper to buy, and cheaper to operate. The consumer wins all around. And to boot, the Ontario government actually helped people buy those before as well. And so, Madam Speaker, the exact same logic. This is not groundbreaking. This is the exact same logic to the transition through the light bulb or the transition through any technology when government has seen the benefit to being able to do that and identifies the need to be able to do that. We can continue to listen to the red herrings, the member from Sarnia-Lambton saying, well, what about the gas tax? And, oh gosh, all this money that we're collecting at the pumps, we could give this and it helps to fix the roads. Well, what about the other side of it? What if we don't do that and we just keep polluting the environment? What about the health impacts on our health system as a result of people having more respiratory problems? You know, conservatives used to be the champions of the environment, progressive conservatives. Brian Mulroney, Flora MacDonald from my riding. These were conservatives that understood that acid rain was a problem. Brian Mulroney led the world by bringing people together to deal with acid rain, went to see George Bush to deal with the problem, came up with a protocol. The same can be said about fixing the ozone layer. Conservatives led the charge on that. The Montreal Protocol, bringing countries from around the world together in Montreal to deal with the problems that we had in the ozone and the fact that it was depleting. Whatever happened to those conservatives?